In answer to my next letter, I received one from him dissuading me from hastening to him as I had proposed. What is proper for publication is the following paragraph, equally just and tender. Quote, one expense, however, I would not have you to spare. Let nothing be omitted that can preserve Mrs. Boswell, though it should be necessary to transplant her for a time into a softer climate. She is the prop and stay of your life. How much must your children suffer by losing her? My wife is now so much convinced of his sincere friendship for me and regard for me that, without any suggestion on my part, she wrote him a very polite and grateful letter. Dr. Johnson to Mrs. Boswell. Dear lady, I have not often received so much pleasure as from your invitation to Onlek. The journey thither and back is indeed too great for the latter part of the year. But if my health were fully recovered, I would suffer no little heat and cold, nor a wet or rough road to keep me from you. I am indeed not without a hope of seeing Onlek again, but to make it a pleasant place, I must see its lady well and brisk and airy. For my sake, therefore, among many greater reasons, take care, dear madame, of your health. Spare no expense, and want no attendance that can procure ease or preserve it. Be very careful to keep your mind quiet, and do not think it too much to give an account of your recovery to Madame your, etc. London, September 7th, 1782, Sam Johnson. It says here in the post note, this letter is misdated by Johnson. It was from a different date. Here's a letter to James Boswell, Esquire. Dear sir, having passed almost this whole year in a succession of disorders, I went in October to Brighthelmston, whither I came in a state of so much weakness that I rested 4 times in walking between the inn and the lodging. My physics and abstinence I grew better, and am now reasonably easy, though at a great distance from health. I am afraid, however, that health begins after 70, and often long before, to have a meaning different from that which it had at 30. But it is culpable to murmur at the established order of the creation, as it is vain to oppose it. He that lives must grow old, and he that would rather grow old than die has God to thank for the infirmities of old age. At your long silence, I am rather angry. You do not, since now you are the head of your house, think it worth your while to try whether you or your friend can live longer without writing, nor suspect that after so many years of friendship that when I do not write to you, I forget you. Put all such useless jealousies out of your mind and disdain to regulate your own practice by the practice of another, or by any other principle than the desire of doing right. Your economy, I suppose, begins now to be settled. Your expenses are adjusted to your revenue, and all your people in their proper places. Resolve not to be poor. Whatever you have, spend less. Poverty is a great enemy to human happiness. It certainly destroys liberty, and it makes some virtues impracticable and others extremely difficult. Let me know the history of your life since your accession to your estate. How many houses, how many cows, how much land is in your own hand, and what bargains you make with your tenants. Of my Lives of the Poets, they have printed a new edition in octavo, I hear, of 3,000. Did I get a set to Lord Hailes? If I did not, I will do it out of these. What did you make of all your copy? Mrs. Thrale and the 3 misses are now for the winter in Argyle Street. Sir Joshua Reynolds has been out of order, but is well again. And I am, dear sir, your affectionate, humble servant, London, December 7th, 1782, Sam Johnson. To Dr. Samuel Johnson, Edinburgh, December 20th, 1782. There's a twist at who's writing this one. I'm not going to give it up. Dear sir, I was made happy by your kind letter, which gave us the agreeable hopes of seeing you in Scotland again. I am much flattered by the concern you are pleased to take in my recovery. I am better and hope to have it in my power to convince you by my attention of how much consequence I esteem your health is to the world and to myself. I remain, sir, with grateful respect, your obliged and obedient servant, Margaret Boswell. Yes, that wasn't from Mr. Boswell. That was from Boswell's wife. The death of Mr. Thrale had made a very material alteration with respect to Johnson's reception in that family. The manly authority of the husband no longer curbed the lively exuberance of the lady, and as her vanity had been fully gratified by having the colossus of literature attached to her for many years, she gradually became less assiduous to please him. Whether attachment to him was already divided by another object, I am unable to ascertain. But it is plain that Johnson's penetration was alive to her neglect or forced attention. For the 6th of October this year, we find him making a parting use of the library at Stratham and pronouncing a prayer which he composed on leaving Mr. Thrale's family. Almighty God, Father of all mercy, help me by thy grace, that I may, with humble and sincere thankfulness, remember the comforts and conveniences which I have enjoyed at this place, and that I may resign them with holy submission, equally trusting in thy protection, when thou givest and when thou takest away. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, have mercy upon me. To thy fatherly protection, O Lord, I commend this family. Bless, guide, and defend them, that they may so pass through this world as finally to enjoy in the presence everlasting happiness. For Jesus Christ's sake, amen. It's a little too much, Johnson, I think, but okay. A little dramatic. One cannot read this prayer without some emotions not very favorable to the lady whose conduct occasioned it. In one of his memorandum books, I find, Sunday went to church at Stratham. Tempo veledixi cum osculo. I bade goodbye to the church with a kiss. He met Mr. Philip Metcalfe often at Sir Joshua Reynolds's and other places, and was a good deal with him at Brighthelmston this autumn, being pleased at once with his excellent table and animated conversation. Mr. Metcalfe showed him great respect and sent him a note that he might have the use of his carriage whenever he pleased. Johnson, the 3rd October, 1782, returned this polite answer. Quote, Mr. Johnson is very much obliged by the kind offer of the carriage, but he has no desire of using Mr. Metcalfe's carriage except when he can have the pleasure of Mr. Metcalfe's company. Unquote. Mr. Metcalfe could not but be highly pleased that his company was thus valued by Johnson, and he frequently attended him in airings. They also went together to Chichester, and they visited Pentworth and Cowdray, and venerable seat of the Lord Montacute. Sir, said Johnson, I should like to stay here 24 hours. We see here now how our ancestors lived. That his curiosity was still unabated appears from 2 letters to Mr. John Nichols on the 10th and 20th of October this year. In one he says, quote, I have looked into your anecdotes, and you will hardly thank a lover of literary history for telling you that he has been much informed and gratified. I wish you would add your own discoveries and intelligence to those of Dr. Rawlinson, and undertake the supplement to Wood. Think of it. And the other, he says, I quote, I wish, sir, you could obtain some fuller information of Jortin, Marklin, and Thurbley. They were 3 contemporaries of great eminence. Now a letter to Sir Joshua Reynolds. Dear sir, I heard yesterday of your late disorder, and should think ill of myself if I had heard of it without alarm. I heard likewise of your recovery, which I sincerely wish to be complete and permanent. Your country has been in danger of losing one of its brightest ornaments, and I am losing one of my oldest and kindest friends. But I hope you will still live long for the honor of the nation, and that more enjoyment of your elegance, your intelligence, and your benevolence is still reserved for, dear sir, your most affectionate, and etc. Brighthelmston, November 14th, 1782, Sam Johnson. The Reverend Mr. Wilson, having dedicated to him his archaeological dictionary, that mark of respect was thus acknowledged. To the Reverend Mr. Wilson, Clitheroe, Lancashire, Clitheroe, Clitheroe. Reverend Sir, that I have long omitted to return you thanks for the honor conferred upon me by your dedication, I entreat you with great earnestness not to consider as more faulty than it is. A very importunate and impressive disorder has for some time debarred me from this pleasures and obstructed me in the duties of life. The esteem and kindness of wise and good men is one of the last pleasures which I can be content to lose. In gratitude to those from whom this pleasure is received, it is a duty of which I hope never to be reproached with the final neglect. I therefore now return you thanks for the notice which I have received from you, and which I consider as giving to my name not only more bulk, but more weight, not only as extending its superficies, but as increasing its value. Your book was evidently wanted and will, I hope, find its way into the school, or schools, to which, however, I do not mean to confine it. For no man has so much skill in ancient rites and practices not to want it. As I suppose myself to owe part of your kindness to my excellent friend, Dr. Paddon, he has likewise a just claim to my acknowledgments, which I hope you, sir, will transmit. There will soon appear a new edition of my poetical biography. If you will accept of a copy to keep me in your mind, be pleased to let me know how it may be conveniently conveyed to you. The present is small, but it is given with good will by Reverend Sir, your most, and etc. December 31st, 1782, Sam Johnson. So that was Johnson's sick year, or one of, I don't know the next 2 years, but that was a sick year. Now we're up to 1783 when Johnson will turn 74, and I'm sorry to say in 1784 he'll die. So we only have 2 more years of poor Johnson left. We're getting close to the end here. In 1783, so he's not doing too good in 1783 either. In 1783, Johnson was more severely afflicted than ever, as will appear in the course of his correspondence. But still, the same ardor for literature, the same consistent piety, the same kindness for his friends, and the same vivacity both in conversation and writing distinguished him. Having given Dr. Johnson a full account of what I was doing at Alnlock, and particularly mentioning what I knew would please him by my having brought an old man, John Colville, of 88 from a lonely cottage to a comfortable habitation within my enclosures, where he had good neighbors near to him, I received an answer in February, of which I extract what follows. Quote, I am delighted with your account of your activity at Alnlock, and wish the old gentleman whom you have so kindly removed may live long to promote your prosperity by his prayers. You have now a new character and new duties. Think of them and practice them. Make an impartial estimate of your revenues, and whatever is live upon less. Resolve never to be poor. Frugality is not only the basis of quiet, but of beneficence. Ooh. No man can help others that want help themselves. We must have enough before we have to spare. I'm glad to find that Mrs. Boswell grows well, and hope that to keep her well, no care nor caution will be omitted. May you long live happily together. When you come hither, pray bring you with you Baxter's Anacreum. I cannot get that edition in London. On Friday, March 21st, having arrived in London the night before, I was glad to find Johnson at Mrs. Thrale's house in Argold Street. Oh, I guess Johnson said that prayer a little too early. Appearances of friendship between them being still kept up. I was shown into his room, and after the first salutation, he said, "I am glad you are come. I am very ill." He looked pale, and was distressed with a difficulty in breathing. But after the common inquiries, he assumed his usual strong, animated style of conversation. Seeing me now for the first time as a laird, or lord, or proprietor of land, he began thus: "Sir, the superiority of a country gentleman over the people upon his estate is very agreeable, and he who says he does not feel it to be agreeable lies, for it must be agreeable to have a casual superiority over those who are by nature equal with us." I said, "Yes, sir, we see great proprietors of land who prefer living in London." "Yet, sir, we see great proprietors of land who prefer living in London." Johnson said, "Why, sir, the pleasure of living in London, the intellectual superiority that is enjoyed there, may counterbalance the other. Besides, sir, a man may prefer the state of the country gentleman over the whole, and yet there may never be a moment when he is willing to make the change to quit London for it." He said, "It is better to have 5% out of land than out of money, because it is more secure. But the readiness of transfer and promptness of interest make many people rather choose the funds. Nay, there is another disadvantage belonging to land compared with money. A man is not so much afraid of being a hard creditor as of being a hard landlord." I said, "Because there is a sort of kindly connection between a landlord and his tenants." And Johnson said, "No, sir, many landlords with us never see their tenants. It is because if a landlord drives away his tenants, he may not get others, whereas the demand for money is so great it may always be lent." Good point, Sir Johnson. He talked with regret and indignation of the facetious opposition to government at this time, and imputed it in a great measure to the Revolution. That's the American Revolution, I'm guessing. "Sir," said Johnson in a low voice, having come nearer to me, while his old prejudice seemed to be fermenting in his mind, "the Hanoverian family is obsolete here. They have no friends. Now the Stuarts have friends who stuck by them so late in 1745. When the right of the king is not reverenced, there will not be reverence for those appointed by the king." His observation that the present royal family has no friends has been too much justified by the very ungrateful behavior of many who were under great obligations to his majesty. At the same time, there are honorable exceptions. In the very next year after this conversation, and ever since, the king has had as extensive and generous support as ever was given to any monarch, and has had the satisfaction of knowing that he was more and more endeared to his people. He repeated to me his verses on Mr. Levitt with an emotion which gave them full effect, and then he was pleased to say, "You must be as much with me as you can. You have done me good. You cannot think how much better I am since you came in." He sent a message to acquaint Mrs. Thrale that I was arrived. I had not seen her since her husband's death. She soon appeared and favored me with an invitation to stay to dinner, which I accepted. There was no other company but herself and 3 of her daughters, Dr. Johnson and I. She, too, said she was very glad I was come, for she was going to Bath and should have been sorry to leave Dr. Johnson before I came. This seemed to me be attentive and kind, and I, who had not been informed of any change, imagined all to be as well as formerly. He was little inclined to talk at dinner, and went to sleep after it. But when he joined us in the drawing room, he seemed revived, and was again himself. That's all for tonight. I'm going to leave Johnson feeling better, so it's not ending on a downer. Till next time, bye from Boswell.